Hey guys, it's me, and today I'm doing a voiceover, which can only mean one thing. It's time for me to announce my top 10 releases of the year. I know the title says favorite metal albums of the year, but there's just one that isn't a metal release, but I know you guys won't mind. Anyways, we'll get to those guys in a bit. I'm gonna be real with you. If I thought last year wasn't the most exciting year for music, then this year takes the cake. Don't get me wrong, there were a lot of good stuff, but it was just good. There weren't too many releases that blew me away this year, but there were 10 releases that did. It was also hard for me to keep up with some releases, so I might have missed some. Like, when I say that I've missed some releases, like, as of today, when I'm recording this voiceover, I just checked out a release that dropped back in October because I missed it and I was actually wanting to check out that release. And then just the other day, I saw that there was a release that I possibly could have checked out, but it's too far gone for me to check out now. And then I just found out as I sat down to record this that there was another release that I would be curious about checking out. So yeah, I missed a lot of stuff. Work and life have done me in a bit this year, so I've missed some things. By the way, I do voiceovers for these because I do a script, and having a script for these keeps me on track so that way I'm not rambling too much. So we definitely need a script for these because we will be here all day if I don't have one. So if it sounds scripted, it's because it is. But let's stop battling and get into these rankings. But before I do so, I need to do my intro, which is, if you are new here to my channel, don't forget to hit subscribe, and also while you're down there, definitely give this video a thumbs up because that will help me out a lot. All my links are down in the description box below, which are the links to my Twitter, Instagram, and my beauty fashion lifestyle channel, and let's get started. Before we get into my rankings, I need to do some housekeeping. First of all, this list is based on my taste and preferences. If you think that a release should be higher or lower, shouldn't be on my list, or that a different release should be on my list, then that is a personal problem and not a me problem. Also, I am a metalhead, so expect to see mostly that on here. B. I also have EPs included in this ranking again this year since there weren't enough EPs on their own that stood out to me. Also, when it comes to the full-length albums and the EPs when I start discussing them, I choose 3 songs from a full-length album to be my favorites off the release and 2 from the EPs. Only reason why EPs get 2 is just simply because they are much shorter and they generally will only sometimes have 2 to 5 songs on them. So doing 3 favorite songs on an EP is sometimes impossible. I also ranked those, with the last song I announced being my top favorite off the release. Thirdly, my time frame for including releases on my rankings goes from mid-November of the previous year to mid-November of the current year. I decided to make this change this year since a few releases came out last December that I didn't get time to really check out, except for one release that I didn't care for, but that's besides the point. I want to give these releases a chance to make it onto my rankings, and to do that I need to have plenty of time to give each of those releases. So I changed my time frames of when a release can make it onto my rankings. Speaking of rankings, that leads me to how I rank releases. There are 3 tiers: 1 star, 2 star, and then 3 star. 1 stars don't get any mention because I only liked probably 1 song off the release. Doesn't necessarily make it a bad release, but it didn't do anything for me as a whole. I think I only had maybe 2 this year, so that's good. 2 stars mean that I liked the release overall and probably enjoyed a song or 2 off of it, but I didn't enjoy it enough for it to be a contender for album of the year. 3 stars means that it has the potential to be album of the year. I thoroughly enjoyed these releases. That being said, some are going to be low 3s, just like there are going to be some high 2s. Now that we know how I rank releases, let's take a peek at the releases that I gave 2 stars to. There are quite a few of them, as you can see, ranging from different genres, subgenres, and whether they're full albums or EPs. But now it is time to look at who actually made it to my top 10 this year, starting with number 10, which is Sirene from Raiven. I decided to check out this EP after falling in love with her Eurovision entry this year, Veronica. I was very curious about what her stuff would sound like considering how theatrical Veronica is, and I definitely wasn't disappointed. Blending pop vibes with theatrical elements, this EP definitely shows off everything it is that Raiven is capable of as a singer. When I tell you her interpretation of Habanera from Carmen is stunning and was something I wasn't expecting, it was stunning and it was something I wasn't expecting. Like, I knew Homegirl could get into that soprano side, but she goes full opera singer in that shit, and I love it. I really need to check out the other release that she has on Spotify because this EP and her latest single, Mama, are absolute bangers. Also, EA Stan, a queen of the gays. And my two favorite songs off the EP are Icona and Veronica. By the way, Veronica, I believe, was my second most listened to song on Spotify this year, so cool that. Coming up at number 9, we have, and I'm probably gonna butcher the pronunciation of this, Bahía, Desolación by Mourning Sun. I probably butchered the pronunciation of the album, but we're just gonna move right along. I'm just a gay white boy from the southeastern US. I don't know how to pronounce most things. Anyways, this is a lovely release. I've known of these guys for many years now, and this album definitely took me by surprise. Doom metal can be tricky for me at times since it could be too drony at times. Add that this band puts an ambient and experimental flair on their sound, it can make it even trickier for me to get into. That all being said, I was taken aback by this. It's haunting, beautiful, dreary, dark, sad, full of emotion. A lot of things I enjoy in music. This release was a reason why I changed the time frame of when a release is going to make it onto my rankings for the year, since it came out mid-December, and listening to it throughout the year really helped it make it onto my list here. I know that no one could ever replace Trees of Eternity, but this is very close. The gentleness in Anna's voice at times really gives that kind of vibe along with those ambient moments. It's such a gorgeous album, and I hope people give it the time it deserves. And my 3 favorite songs off the album are Deep Downward No Escape, Vanishing Point, and Inner Crux. In 8th place, we have Charcoal Grace from Caligula's Horse. This album was another one that took me by surprise. I've known of these guys for a while, but never was interested enough to check out a full length from them that I know of, or that I remember. I'm so glad I decided to check out this release. It turned out to be a lot prettier than I was expecting it to be. Like, when it comes to the circle of prog bands that these guys are usually lumped in with, this includes bands like Haken, Left Press, Riverside, Voyager, and Persephone, just to name a few of them. I'm usually not the most into them at times. Like, I definitely enjoy stuff from them, but there are times when I'm just not fully sold on them. This album definitely changed my opinion on this band. Like I said, it's a lot prettier than I expected it to be, while throwing in some heavy moments and even some atmospheric bits to add more peaks and valleys to the landscape of the release. It took me on a journey that I wasn't expecting to have with this band, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. At first, I wasn't sure if it would make it onto this list, but I kept finding myself wanting to listen to it. So I guess that's how I knew that it was deserving to be here. And my 3 favorite songs off the album are The World Breathes With Me, The Storm Chaser, and Charcoal Grace for Give Me Hell. It's time to get a bit spooky with number 7, which is Of Sorcery and Darkness from Nocturna. I loved their debut album, Daughters of the Night, and I love this follow-up. I can be picky with power metal, but the gothic metal flair they give their sound along with throwing in some strong operatic moments really pull me in. There really isn't a ballad or slower song on here, and all the songs are relatively fast-paced and fun. I really enjoy the lyrics and how they're influenced by gothic literature and dark fantasy. Almost gives me Castlevania vibes at times, which you can really hear that vibe on my favorite song of the album, which I'll reveal shortly. Something I definitely notice on this release is the incorporation of more operatic moments in the songs in comparison to the previous release, which add those stronger elements to really set them apart from your typical symphonic power metal band. They definitely expanded upon their sound here, and I cannot wait to see what all else they will bring us in the future. And my 3 favorite songs off this album are Sapphire, Seven Sins, and Creatures of Darkness. And number 6, we have Winds of Disdain from Trail of Tears. This was a release that I had been waiting on for such a long time, and when I tell you it blew me away like that tornado on the cover art, it did. This EP is such a great comeback for them, and I'm so happy that these guys are back. They're one of my favorite gothic metal bands, and probably my favorite of the many ones that came out of Norway in the mid-90s throughout the mid-2000s. And now with Eileen Jimenez as their female singer, it makes me wonder if they'll be performing songs that are vocally challenging from their first 3 releases. You all know me, I love dramatic music, and this EP definitely brings that element back to the band while also exploring new things. This EP and my overall love for this band is the reason why they were my most listened to artist on Spotify this year. Sure, this release is in the middle of my rankings, but the excitement for their return just had me jamming to them as a whole a lot this year. Definitely go check out this EP. It's so good. And my 2 favorite songs off of it are No Colors Left and the title track, Winds of Disdain. It's time to enter the top 5. And in that 5th place, we have Where Gods Fear to Speak by Oceans of Slumber. I knew going into this release that this was supposed to be an angry album, but I wasn't expecting just how angry it was going to be. It's still very much an Oceans of Slumber album, but this album they experiment with death metal and the more extreme side of things. Cammy is doing harsh vocals here, and it's so impressive that it caught me off guard the first time I heard it when I did a reaction to the title track earlier this year. If you felt like Starlight and Ash was too much of a diversion in their sound, first of all, your weakest fucking natural selection is coming for you. But secondly, you'll enjoy how this album goes back to basics for them a little bit. But in true Oceans of Slumber fashion, they reinvented their sound here. There are some people that I know that didn't care for this new direction, but I really enjoyed it. Like I've said, I love dramatic music, and they definitely did that with this release. I know it'll be some time before I get to experience these new songs live now that Cammy and Dauber are expecting a little boom nugget, but I definitely look forward to seeing and hearing an angry Cammy on stage. And my 3 favorites off this album are I Will Break the Pride of Your Will, Run from the Light, and Wish. In 4th place, we have Vermillion from Simone Simons. I'm gonna be real with you guys here. I wasn't expecting much with this solo album. I honestly thought it wouldn't be that interesting or would be a totally different genre other than symphonic metal. But when Eterna came out and it was announced that Arian was producing it, I became intrigued. I checked out the whole album after the singles dropped and was floored. This is a really impressive album. It really shows off all the different corners of Simone's voice and just how wide her range is. It's also refreshing to not hear her sing about quantum physics, philosophy, and stuff of that sort, and sing more about being human and sci-fi shit. This is gonna be a weird thing to possibly say, but it almost gives me Tori Amos vibes. Like, it gives that 90s experimental vibe fused with proggy symphonic metal, and I really dig it. And my 3 favorite songs off the album are Fight or Flight, Dystopia, and Eterna. It's top 3 time! And in that 3rd place, we have Opera from Fleshgod Apocalypse. When Pendulum first came out, and it turned out to be inspired by Francesco's near-death experience a few years ago when he had a massive fall during a hiking trip, I simply thought that it was gonna be a story told in a single. I didn't expect the whole album was going to be influenced by that accident, and boy does it show. This album is a roller coaster of emotions, and I love it. Again, I love dramatic music. It's also very interesting hearing Veronica play such a huge role on this album. I'm not sure if it's because of Paolo's departure from the band, or if it's to help to further tell the story and express the emotions better. Like, this album starts out as a typical Fleshgod album, but about halfway into it, it starts to get so emotional and personal that it can be a bit unsettling how vulnerable Francesco is getting. Like, Matricide, August 21st is a little too specific and real. I mean, I love it, but holy tits, is it intense. This is not what I was expecting at all, but I thoroughly enjoyed this album so much. And my 3 favorite songs off of it are Till Death Do Us Part, Matricide, August 21st, and at war with my soul. My second favorite album of the year is Femme Fatale from Exit Eden. This album is so much fun. I know some people wish that Amanda was on this album, but honestly, Marina, Clementine, and Anna can carry this project on and still be successful and epic, and this album is pure proof of it. I'm just so happy that we finally got a new release from these guys after 7 years. Yes, it's been 7 years since Rhapsody in Black dropped. Not only that, but we got some original songs on this album. Half the album is original and the other half of the album are covers. They have to stay true to their roots with the covers, which the ones they did are absolutely amazing. I grew up listening to classic rock since that's all that my dad listens to, so hearing Alone in Separate Ways done so well makes me so happy. Also, the original songs are really great. One thing I truly love and appreciate about this release though is that everyone gets to shine. I felt like on Rhapsodies in Black that Anna didn't really get that much time to shine, even though she's a founding member of the band. And Amanda was the main one on show, which I mean, she's a powerhouse all on her own. But this is a girl group. Everyone deserves to shine, and these girls definitely do. Sure, Clementine gets a song to herself, but they all have songs that they can take the lead on, so no one actually gets outshined. I hope and dream that they will tour the US in the future and that I can meet these wonderful ladies one day. It'll make my gay little heart so happy. And my 3 favorite songs are Femme Fatale, Separate Ways, and It's a Sin. Before I tell you guys my album of the year, we need to check out the honorable mentions. The cover arts you're seeing now are the releases that had the potential of making it into my rankings this year, but they didn't make it since I love my top 10 more. That being said, there were a few that I definitely want to give special shoutouts to, starting out with Ascending in Synergy from Elvalon. I loved this band since the very beginning. I remember finding them through the single Oraculum a decade ago, and seeing how much they've grown and improved since then is absolutely amazing. This album is such a gorgeous follow-up to the stunning album that is Until Dawn. This was so close to making it on my top 10, and it was so hard to not include it, so that's why I'm talking about it here. Lobster Popstar by Little Big is such a fun album. I wasn't expecting to love it as much as I do since I know a lot of their singles are sentient shitposts, but this was so much fun and a great release to put on to get you in a fun mood. It's wild seeing how much they've changed since I first learned of them through Dead Unicorns back when I was in high school, so well over a decade ago. God, I'm getting old, and my back and knees are a constant reminder of that. Dark Paradise from Imperia is definitely an album I liked this year, but I wasn't madly in love with it like I tend to be with a lot of their releases. What gets it a spot on here though is ultimately how diverse the tracks are, and also the fact that this band continues to do what they do best: having strong emotive tracks. Lost Souls and The Tree of Life are absolutely breathtaking songs that definitely need to be heard. A Frame of Mind from Calandra took me by surprise. I never dove into their catalog before checking out this album, and I'm glad that I did. It has such a lovely vibe and is wonderful to drive to when you need something that's both chill and easy to listen to, but also full of power and emotion. Kaleidoscope from Eclipse is a very pretty album like all of their releases. But what this album brings that previous ones have never done is having multiple songs with guest singers. See, this band is a string quartet that have always done covers, but now they're adding original songs and are bringing singers on board, and it's such a lovely extension. Definitely check out Break My Fall and Not All Those Who Wander Are Lost off this album, which, by the way, that latter has guitars in it, which is a fun touch. And if you want a song that has vocals on it that isn't on this album, check out In This Life, which that song has their cellist Linda singing on it, which is a lovely touch. Next one I want to touch on is Heaven Can Wait from Trash Boat. I said this about Don't You Feel Amazing when I came out, and I'm pretty sure I say this about any queer person in the music world, but the music gets so much better once they come out. This is such an angry punk album, and I fucking love it. I was curious about how they topped Don't You Feel Amazing, and they did an exceptional job. I wish I could have seen these guys when they were here in Atlanta recently, but there's always next time. The last honorable mention that I have is Malia from Ashlyn Malia. I found her through an Instagram ad for her song Nobody Else, and I had to check her out. Such a great AP, and I can't wait to see what all she comes up with. This is such a lovely release, and Nobody Else is an amazing song. I love it so much. I wish it were a wee bit longer, but still, absolutely amazing song. Go listen to it. And now it's time to reveal my album of the year, which is The Obsession from Charlotte Wessels. Should it come as any surprise that this is my album of the year? I'm gonna be honest, I'm not gonna talk too much about this release because I know I will start talking in circles and rambling. All bias aside, this is such an amazing album from start to finish. I remember one of my first thoughts when watching the music video for The Exorcism was that this album was going to be my favorite of the year, even without my biases of Charlotte being my biggest inspiration in life and my queen, legend, and icon. I also thought to myself when I saw the guys and Sophia that nature was healing. It felt so right seeing everyone together again. But getting onto the music, this is so good. A solid blending of prog and modern metal, and yet I haven't heard anything like it before. The instrumentals are absolutely insane on some tracks. The storytelling on all the songs is done so well. The power and emotion that this album carries with it is so great. This is what I know to expect from Charlotte, and knowing that she has a band again makes me know that things will continue to be epic and amazing into the future, and it excites me so much. I also really enjoyed that they reworked some of Charlotte's Patreon songs and transformed them from just solo endeavors to fully produced and mastered in a way that truly gets to show them off. And my 3 favorite songs off the album are Vigor and Valor, The Crying Room, and The Exorcism. And that, kids, is my rankings for my favorite releases of 2024. How do we feel about this list? Did any of my rankings make it onto your list? What all made it onto yours? I'd love to know, since I'm always curious about seeing what people are listening to and how people feel about different releases. I'm definitely curious about how next year's releases will turn out, and honestly, I hope there will be more exciting ones that I struggle to make a top 10, or that I'm back to giving EPs their own list. But until I see you guys in my next video, whenever that may be, goodbye.